Welcome, everyone. The first ever iteration of the Sparky Lounge Room. What a time to be alive. The fact that these conversations used to exist in lounge rooms only, but now given the social media, digital realm, just that you can have these discussions openly and honestly and go out to Australia-wide. So we're trying to bring education to the industry. We've got 3 people here today. Crowy, we'll kind of go through, what are you going through? Years in industry / favorite thing to do / something else, favorite food.
Sure.
Years in industry, started apprenticeship 2001. So 24 years, some office, some site, bit of a mixed bag. Favorite thing to do, surf, and favorite food would be probably some kind of like cool pizza from the depths of Positano.
Depths of Positano.
We'll just let Italian. Yeah, I've been to Positano. Yeah. Not the depths of it, but like not near it. No, but
Anyway, though, sort of a couple of red wines, maybe some.
how good's the red wine over there? It's the best. But next.
Yeah. So 20 odd years in the industry now. 04 started the apprenticeship. Been very fortunate, I feel, with what I was exposed to in the industry, but also too, I feel like you take the opportunities that present themselves. So, was, thrust into some, project management, quoting roles very young, which super thankful for. And yeah, really enjoy the time in the industry, admin, obviously on site, and wide exposure as well, like across different sectors, from Ceiling Fan Jan, which is one of Crowy's, best friends and number 1 client. Shout out to all the Jans out there.
Hey, Jan.
And then up onto like big mining, gas sort of sites. What I like favorite thing to do. I guess I just love all sport. So very sporty. Don't participate much anymore. More of a watcher. But yeah, traveled a lot to see different sporting events around Australia and also around the world, and sort of got to be like a bucket list around to go see some bits and pieces. One of them is starting this week, the Masters in Augusta. I think that'll be an epic event to go to. And favourite food, really easily, it's Mexican.
Like a taco?
That's everything. A broad
spectrum. Everything.
Soft shell, hard shell,
So I reckon because there's been like a proliferation of like the Mexican sort of restaurants and that over the last few years, I go back to like the old school. Start with some nachos as a bit of an entree, and then dive into a mixture of a bit of hard shell and soft shell tacos.
Just a question on the nachos, like a pork, a bean, a beef.
Like them both. When I lived in Canada for a bit, and they used to do this really good vegetarian one, and it was epic.
Bean dip.
Yeah, particularly in the snow. Obviously, it was good fun. But yeah, probably go-to would be like a beef or a pulled pork. I'm open to it all. Just give it to me, and I'll smash it all.
So good.
Should have had some snacks out while you.
Yeah. Some Mexican.
Like everyone's hungry now.
It's a pretty good day, but yeah, that's
cool.
Shit, yeah.
Oh, sweet. Well, Fordy from New Age Electrical, and thank you to you guys for having me on today for your first inaugural Lounge Room podcast. I've been in the industry for 15 years, maybe a bit more if you count some work experience I did my apprenticeship. I did my apprenticeship in commercial, the service side of the industry, but into construction as well. So I had a very wide variety. I worked in explosive areas and things like that. I did a lot of work at the MCG, a lot of maintenance stuff, HV, comms. Like that was my full background, was more so that side of things, heaps of big switchboard changeovers, working through shutdowns and things like that. So that was like my main bread and butter in my apprenticeship. And then obviously relocating up here, I started working for like a smaller residential guy, and I had no idea about even how to fucking wire a light switch. So it was like thrown in the ute straight away and
put gloves on for this, or what do you? Yeah.
And then been running the business. Been running the business now for 6 years this year, so we sort of dabble in everything. So it's good to have that background of the commercial side, as that's the direction that I want the business to go in. That's definitely my driving force to get back onto those big job sites, doing that sort of stuff. So
yeah, that's cool. Definitely from my perspective, I feel like everyone's company seems to start out the same way. You get this gut feel idea ideology and you go out and you do work for your friends and family who need ceiling fans, and then someone needs like a rewire, and you're always sort of taking those next progressive steps up. And then, unless, of course, you come in I came in straight out of my apprenticeship, so that was where I sort of landed. And then your jobs get bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah. But I think the bigger and better your jobs get within a realm, the more attractive the kind of work you do is, the better you can attract and retain staff. And once you get those 1 or 2 jobs and you get your name on the map, then other people want to work with you. So do you guys feel your business, once you do a job or 2, was there like a standout job that flip the script and people were approaching you instead of you approaching them? What do you think?
Yeah, like housing wise, probably. Like we've done some pretty nice big houses. Obviously, once you start getting into that sort of realm in this area, like you can be seen as the go-to person for that. And then I guess now we're sort of in that stage of dipping our feet in the bigger commercial. We just finished the big TAFE job, and I think we've had a couple other big commercial companies hit out to us to look into some like education work. So we just got hit up for another big one for that to price. So I think, I feel like, once you start get your foot through the door with one and it's like prove that you can do it, then you're hoping anyway that sort of paths the way to get into more and more of that, as long as that's what you want to do and you didn't completely fuck that job up and enjoyed it. But like everyone, like all the guys on that side are like devoed that it's finished, and they're like fully like want another. They're ready to think. They're like, we need another job like this. So let's get one. Yeah, just like it was just like it was a pretty stressful environment, but so many different factors. Like installing new mains into a sub and all those things, and then new main boards and DBs and lighting control and all those. We had pulled some guys in that worked for us that hadn't done that before, and they loved it. So it was pretty. I think everyone's like, yeah, fuck, I don't think we can go back to installing ceiling fans in a house. We need more of this shit. So that's what we're trying to push to get.
And so good for the apprentices to have that wide range of work.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we still do the maintenance side of things as well. We have a maintenance division now where, like, I got guys today that are going around and moving a PowerPoint, and they might do 6 jobs a day, and they're going house to house. So they've still got that, opportunity to do all the little things. Whereas I kind of didn't do my apprenticeship, I didn't always have that. So it's kind of like it's good that these guys can learn to do the big stuff, but then it's also they can go do a solar tomorrow, or they can go on and be doing this PowerPoint for old love or a fan, and you're going to have a very wide variety of everything, which is good.
Hey, got a question for you. So when you came out of the commercial world up here working for that resi guy, what's the sort of biggest takeaway? Because we had on the residential side, I would say our second-year apprentices were as good or better than tradies who sort of came in. I think more acclimatized to that style work. Yeah. But like, what was your biggest takeaway? Was it the speed's one thing you hear? It's a different pace, but what else are you sort of...
Well, we definitely had jobs in...
Insulation? You're like, what's this?
Like commercial side where it was like, just make this last a week. And it's like, I'd probably do it in a day. Yeah. So yeah, going to that. But I feel like the pressure was kind of put on you for the speed and things. I think the biggest thing was just being left to figure it out. Like I had no idea what I was doing. And it was kind of like, it was good because another guy, and it was actually the guy I started New Age with, we both got hired at the same time. It was kind of like, I'm going to hire one of you, I'm going to put you together. And he ended up taking on both of us. But we just got put in a car together, and he was full commercial as well. And his dad was like an old school Sparky. So we were just calling his dad like, boy, how do we install this meter? And he goes, you shouldn't even be doing that. And we're like, oh, we got sent to do it. He's like, no, you're not even allowed to do that. Like it was just all this crazy shit, like just get in the car and go do this, go do this, go do this. And just like sort of milked our way through it, I guess. But a big takeoff was like, that's when I realized like, fuck, I'm just going to take on everything, because like even the little things of like changing a hot water element, like I had no idea about that, how to test it, do all those things. But obviously when you start your own business, it was good to learn all those things and take that on. So even the job that you think's the shittest job, that may end up being something that you need to know later on. So take it all in.
And say yes, figure it out later.
Yeah.
You're a big fan of that, Cam, say yes, figure it out later. And then also, Cam, talk to us about your business, because I do feel like most people of a certain size end up with sort of arms, if you will. You might have a solar arm, aircon arm. Specifically, the more you remove yourself from the city, the more you've got to be sort of a bit of a jack of all trades. Yeah. But you know, but in electrical itself, you've obviously got a whole spectrum, and you know, a lot of people go, I specialize in projects, or I specialize in commercial, or specialize in service, but you guys seem to do a whole wide variety. Like, what would you say to someone being like, I want to specialize, and what advice would you sort of give?
If you want to specialize, I think you need to have obviously a really, really good understanding of that area of work. So as in skill set, you also need the guys and girls to have that skill set as well. But also you really need a contact base who's going to be able to give you a pipeline of work. I think it's probably changed the last few years. I mean, I've been in it for 20 years now, and in the beginning, because I grew up in Brizzy and then relocated to the coast and went back, and then sort of back on the coast now and been to other places in between. From when I first started, it was, you definitely got affected a lot more by the economic times. A lot more peaks and a lot more valleys. And I think to an extent we still do get affected by that as well. But it's definitely flattened out a little bit in regards to, like, there seems to be a genuine pipeline of a lot more of the same style of work. But
is that just the diversification of work? So, like, well, one sector might be quiet, one's sort of cooking.
Yeah. So it just goes up.
You don't feel it as much.
You don't feel it as much, anymore. Which I think sort of a few more companies now are definitely very focused in sort of narrowed down in, I say niche area sort of thing, but niche to me is you can sort of be in commercial, but then there's different niches within commercial as well. So you might just focus on commercial. I'm a bit of a believer that they feed each other. So if you do have a bit of service work and service clientele, that feeds your construction or project style work, because you've got a trusted relationship with those particular clients, and then it feeds into one or the other. I'm a big believer that service work is essentially recession proof. Is probably they don't feel the impacts, the ups and downs, because if you touched on, you worked at the MCG and places like that, they still play footy there every weekend, and they still play cricket regardless of whether the
Dow Jones up or down,
what's happening. So it still needs to be worked on the whole time. So I'm a bit of a believer that you need a little bit of both. And I'm also a strong believer that there are people in the industry who have a strong passion for the service side of the industry. I just don't think it gets as nurtured anymore. Like, I mean, Fordy, you touched on it there, just like you just got thrown in a car in the residential sense and sort of had to figure it out yourself. I think there's a real lack of, I guess, putting the time into people or willing to have a punt on someone to build that out. And I mean, working across all sectors, there's definitely people suited to different fields. And I think if you're a personable person, you actually really enjoy the service and maintenance side.
We've just, like I said before, how we've just integrated that into our business. We've been trying to figure out that for a while, because we have all this maintenance work come in, and then it's like, everyone's on a project, so it's hard. So now we've solely have it dedicated to that person, and he does not get put on another project. He is like, if there's no work for him, we need to find the service work. So, but when we initially went to him about it, he came off a big commercial project, and he thought he was getting demoted or fired. And I'm like, nah, this is going to be really good. It's a way to make more money, because we're going to put incentives in place for things like that. And he was like, oh, okay. And it's taken a few months, but at the Chrissy party when we had that, he was like, I'm actually frothing. I'm loving it. Really? And now he's really taking it on. He's getting all good 5-star reviews coming through Google and with his name in there and stuff like that. And I think he really likes that.
That's
cool. Every time you get a review, you get a bit of extra coin and things like that.
What are you swinging for the review with a name, if you don't mind me asking?
I was saying $20. Because I was like, you're doing 10 jobs a day and you can get a review on every job. He's dropped off it now, but I was like, there was a few where he was doing it. And I was like, if he can keep doing that.
It's probably just worthwhile him sending out to his contact list in his phone.
Reviews are reviews. So
and he gives everyone 10% of that, $2.
You can make some, you can look at his $20, or you could be like, I can make an extra $100 a day.
It's huge.
That's huge.
Yeah. I was fortunate to see my old boss run this is interesting. By the time I'd left, or maybe 5 years after, he had a project division and a service division. Service division had 3 people in it, like 1 leader. The leaders at that point were the admin, really. Because I think when the admin's got full reign over one person's schedule, and it's not like the business owner going, oh, drop off that job, go to here, pull it off here, go in the middle of the day. When someone's got full reign over the schedule, and they need that in the service division. But he was, I was fortunate to see 3 staff, like field staff, 2 admins, and a team size of 20 at that point. So it was 25% of the team producing 50% of the net profit from the service. So I think it's so easily brushed over, and everyone would have been to a job where the RCD, trip time, thermals, all the ongoing regular maintenance stuff's not done because the project guy's too busy. But if you can stop and double down on both of that, I think solar maintenance, aircon maintenance, preventative maintenance is absolutely huge. But we are talking today about pricing, and specifically about, I guess, Bremner Electrical put out that post. Your mate?
Josie.
Yeah, cool. So he put out that post, which was super interesting discussion, basically saying that, and I think we've all been there. Someone, I'm 130 grand cost price, someone's coming at 80, and I'll repeat that, 130 grand cost price, and someone's at 80. So you got to just look at it and be, okay, how good is the 80 grand person? But I think specifically, you get pricing wrong at 3 different major times. The first time is when you're starting out and you're sort of, no idea, and your job management system might be like a napkin that's dirty, or like a bit of cardboard from the wholesaler, and you're sort of disorganized and rushing. It's a huge time when people get things wrong, and the only way to learn is to back costs and educate yourself and work out your net profits and stuff. Second time you see huge is when people have like 2 full-time jobs. So your full-time office and full-time site. I pushed through that with no kids, so I if you guys have got a chance after this, I'd love to hear about what it's like pushing through that with kids. So you got 2 full-time jobs, you're quoting at 10 o'clock at night. You're quoting usually at that point, you're a business owner, so you're optimistic, incredibly optimistic, and you're usually quite good on the tools while you started the business. So you're quoting best case person, best case scenario at 10 p.m. And it's a recipe for a high-speed chase that doesn't end well. You're getting chased and chasing somehow. And usually, and you see at that point, people want to grow their business, they've exhausted their organic reach, and they start to reach out to people maybe they shouldn't reach out to, that's like another discussion altogether. So that's a huge time. And the third time, when operations managers or admins start to quote for you, which is so... At those key times, I'll put my hand up and say, I've been on both sides of Bremner's situation. I quoted a job. We were growing a team. We're at 6 to 8 staff. I had no idea about this townhouse job. Just sort of said yes and figured it out later, but like crashed and burned, figured it out. And I remember we got a townhouse job, I think for 130, and then another job for 180. So maybe like between 3 and 350, maybe 400 including variations. And I lost around 50 grand cost price on both. Now that sounds, if you're listening, that sounds so stupid. But if you've been in the heat of the moment and you're quoting at night time, you forget something, you've got an average team and you're throwing them out there, and you just got to think about it logistically, right? If you're 20% out at 2 grand, you're 2-4 and someone else is 2 grand. It's very easy to communicate. But if you're 20% out of 400 grand, someone's 400 and someone's 480. So the same incremental differences that put you north or south, when you might not even notice it, all of a sudden now it's noticeable. So it's actually pretty common, more common than you think. And I guess 2 things: we don't want to see people go bankrupt by quoting low. We don't want to see people undercutting deliberately. So I guess the whole goal of this podcast is not to bring shame upon you don't know your numbers, you're an idiot. What an idiot, dude died in a hang gliding accident. Not that, but to bring education. And it's okay not to know, but let's reach out and have the discussion in an open slather. But I obviously just touched on maybe 40 points. But that's the general discussion we're going to have. So what comes to mind when you guys are thinking?
I think if you turn it right back to, and we get this a lot of reach out, and Fordy was just touching on it before, just guys going out on their own, is the fundamental principle around quoting and what it involves. And simplistically, we touch on it a lot, is that, there's the time that's spent on it, and then there's the materials that are spent doing the job or put into the job, and that equals the cost. So having an understanding that that's how you got to the cost first and foremost, not just like, oh, it's $150. Well, why is it $150 for that particular task or install or however you want to describe it? Because that's what we're doing. We're shifting material and labour. That's it. But how is it getting split up into the various sectors? So really understanding how we got to that dollar value first and foremost. Then you move on from there further and understanding how it all collaboratively builds together over a larger job, or it doesn't even have to be a larger job. It could just be like 10 individual tasks on a particular job. And then that then compounds across, obviously, a new build or like a commercial install or something like that, how that affects it all. And the type of job as well. So like you can't have the same price to install a light fitting in an existing property that is going to be for a brand new build. Like it's completely, we're chalk and cheese here. So fundamentally understanding obviously how you got to that price and then the type of install that you have. Then as you grow, I'm on a roll here, so I'll just keep going. And as you grow, the time that you can do it in is probably unlikely that your team is going to be able to do it in that time. And that's purely just because no one is going to be as invested or care as much. And that could be a conversation you could have forever and ever. I sort of think it's a mute conversation because it's like, well, why would someone be as invested in and care as much about your business as you do? Like it's an irrelevant conversation, I feel. So then having an understanding how when you start to build a team, how that starts to affect it, then the jobs that you're going on as you have a bigger team, safety comes into it, documentation of bits and pieces. So like these all things come into account because when you're doing it, you're probably not even doing a job card. Let's be honest, it's just all in your head. So it's just like, oh, well, I've done the job, I can do the invoice. But now as you have a team, you need a job card because you've got someone in the admin supporting it who makes up that invoice. And if they don't know what's on there, they can't teleport into that technician's head and understand what a GPO is. And then on one job, and then they called it a DGPO on another job, and another job they called it a switch socket. And it's like, how many different descriptions are there for a PowerPoint? And it's like, well, there's more.
Yeah, that's why you only install Classic Series.
Yeah, Classic Series.
That was a joke.
So they're sort of things that all come into play as you sort of start to develop how your cost comes about. And I think fundamentally it's really, really important to understand that because if you've got Billy and Bobby, and they've got 20 years in the industry and they're a little team and they just shoot around and they do all the job, do all the admin, do all the invoicing, and they're pretty well qualified and they're good at their job, the price is going to be, and they work out of Bobby's basement sort of thing, and they store all the stuff in the car park, and it's like that classic tradies house you go to. You walk down the side, it's just like a sort of part wholesaler, part wrecking yard. You're sort of like, his wife's so unhappy, right? Happy right now. So you've got that versus, you've got someone who's got 10 staff, a warehouse. It just operationally doesn't stack up. So there's going to be a difference in the cost there. Also, too, there can be a difference in the product as well, because it could be more professional in the sense of the way the job's delivered, it's managed well, there's someone to talk to. Bobby's not in a ceiling every time he takes the call from that project manager. He's like, oh, hang on, I'll just pull up the plans on my phone. My phone's dead.
Just take my knee pads off, can't hear you.
Yeah, can't do it. Whereas like the PM, he's in the office or out and about in the field. He's like, hang on, I'll just pull up my laptop now and I'll be able to tell you this conversation now. So it's really important to understand how that overall affects the cost of the outcome of the quote. So like, it's not saying that one's right or wrong. It's how you got. It's really important to understand how you got to that price. And I think on top of that, that's why there's different layers to the market in different sectors so that you can end up. I also question, like, are you swimming in the right pool then sometimes? So it's like, if you're constantly getting smashed in one area, it's like, I can't believe I'm getting undercut. It's like, well, hang on, maybe you're not swimming in the right pool anymore. you might need to shift up a gear or move into a different sector because it doesn't quite. You're competing with a different.
Can you say in regards to that as well, like, can you adjust your costings? Like, say, if I look at what we just spoke about with our service division, and it's our overheads are going to cost more for us to go and change a light than old mate who's just started charging $80 an hour and then putting, Facebook ads up saying cheap electrician. If that's your competition, and this is what a lot of people will say as well, can you adjust? Do I take my whole overheads for the business and put it onto that one? There's one guy in a van doing it, whereas the rest of the business is 14 guys in vans, and the majority of the overheads are covered by that. So, like, adjusting your pricing to suit like that one side of your company, and like it might be with the solar, like same thing with that. Like, we know when we price solar, we're usually going up against people that are going to charge a lot less. So then, can you adjust your pricing to suit to be more competitive against that, but then making sure that the other side of your business is upholding the rest of your costings as well? Like, do you talk to people about that sometimes?
Yeah, talk about the split. I guess it's like almost advanced level understanding, especially, let's say, I know that ad you guys did for solar was genius. Is that your idea?
Yeah, it was, between me, Tomo, who does the solar division, and my partner Jared, like we
who got to slam the ice cream down?
That's my daughter. Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah. She would have been so stoked about that. Yeah. But so that's interesting because I know just from reading that was the one time you advertised, or one of the only times.
Yeah, that was like one of the main ones where we actually went to a dude to run ads for us.
Yeah,
and it didn't even work out. We paid him. I feel like we paid him $2,000. Like, we made the ads, which cost us like $2,000. Then we went to him and paid him $2,000 to do all the back end stuff, and it didn't perform as well as he thought it was. So he just took it down, but then kept our money, and that was it.
So good. Yeah. I mean, not good, but
I think we actually got 2 jobs out of it, but that was from me posting it on Instagram, and people ripped back to it. So it was free, but so it paid for the actual, covered the cost.
Yeah. But no, so what we're saying, so usually solar, or even the maintenance stuff has a heavier load. So solar might be, I'm advertising there, but I'm not advertising the project. I get a phone call, and so there's a lower, so there's a lower amount of overhead attached to that portion. I'm advertising over here, or hey, this service team of 3 people is costing me 2 admins, so I could lump it 60-40 there. I think this is where reflection on the month is super critical and important. But Cam mentioned something before, which I want to unpack more about swimming in, knowing what pool you're swimming in, and I feel like it's what's the word? Not everyone's going to go with you on your journey. So your clients who you used to work for, and you only got to reference your own personal habit. If I could buy a motorbike for my son and it's $5,000, or a motorbike at $15,000, and both people stared me in the face and said, like, this is I'm not a motorbike guy, but this is a Yamaha XYZ 400. It goes this speed. It's got the warranty papers. It's brand new. I wouldn't know anyone who would pay 15 instead of 5. So it's important to note that at the end of all this discussion, we can be as self-righteous as we want, but there's someone actually paying the bill. And if you put yourself in a renovation and you're going to spend $300,000 or $500,000, and both people swore black and blue it was the same product, I dare say I don't know anyone that's going to choose the 500, no matter the relationship, no matter the time in business. Maybe you'll get a couple of people, but it's a minority. So I think it's important to note that there is a client at the end of the day paying for this stuff. Yeah. So, and but they're swimming in a different pool. Coming back to that, Fordy, you guys are probably swimming in lots of different pools.
Yeah.
But we had a discussion the other day about, you're not going to be as cheap as Bobby on the kitchen renos, at the unit in some town. How do you, if someone approached you, would you be like, nah, it's not a good fit? Would you try and make it work? What would you do in that?
There's some things that we won't, we know that it's going to be and I'll say, sometimes we straight up and say, if you're looking for the cheapest price, you're not going to, if it's a job that we just think I can tell, you can tell when someone's going to go for the cheapest price. Sometimes there's a battler with some tiny little reno, and I'm like, hey, you're probably going to get it cheaper from this guy who's a one-man band, and sometimes there's a couple guys I flick some stuff to like that sometimes that are just, you know, one guy in a car, and I'll just go, yeah, you give this guy a call, he'll help you out. But it goes back to what Cam was saying before, is like when something changes, you need to have you want to have your finger in all the pies, because I know when interest rates changed and people weren't building houses as much last year or the year before, like our commercial side was still going. We were like the only people in the area that were busy. And I had all Sparkies hit me up asking me for work. Like there's definitely people that are busy, but we were keeping 30 people working the whole time through. We had no downtime. We were taking on subbies. We were taking on guys that run their own businesses and putting them on. But that's because we were still doing the residential. We were still doing the commercial, still doing maintenance and solar, all those things. So we still had everything going. But if we were just solely doing houses and not doing anything else, then we would have probably felt it pretty bad as well.
Yeah.
So it's hard to like, I know what you're saying with the pools, but like, yeah, like you got to still know, like, you know, what level of residential we're doing is different to someone else. And that's why when I'm saying the smaller jobs are just going for that one guy. And if we hit, and then the other stuff, the guys are doing like the high end resi stuff.
Yeah. And maybe replace pools of job sizes with clients.
Yeah. Clients.
That's probably a better way to phrase it. Because I think, you know, as you go to Brett's house to replace something, you know, he's like, oh, come back to my commercial factory. And it's like, whoa. So now I think you want to be working for those right sort of clients. And let's face it, I've got friends who run very successful building companies, and they might be punching out 10 to 15 duplexes a year. Let's call it 5 duplexes a year. I remember someone quoted at 20 grand duplex, and we were like 45. So it was way less than half our price. Yeah. Funny story, this guy ended up getting his tires slashed in Cronulla. So like psycho undercut of the whole industry, but uneducated undercut, where he eventually came unstuck, which was unfortunate, right? Like no one wants to see that happen. But it was interesting. If you're the builder and you can save 5 lots of 20 grand from the electrician only, and then 5 lots of 10 grand from the plumber, 5 lots of 5 grand from the tiler. And this is where, if anyone ever approaches you from a contracts admin point of view, I'd probably run for the hills if they hadn't heard about you, because their job is to solely like get the cheapest price. That's their job. They're paid, you know, 80, 90, 100 grand a year to get the cheapest price from all sub-trades. So if someone's hitting you up, it's not a sign from the trade gods. It's a sign that they're looking for the stray sheep wandered from the pack, and they're the wolves, Liam Neeson style, right? Gonna attack you. Only way I'd cop an email like that is if I knew someone or someone sent it to me, or like, oh, you got to work with these guys. Because you got to think, if no one has if they don't have any sort of understanding of who you are, they're not going off reputation, they're not going off capacity, they're not going off skill set, they're not going off Google reviews, they're going off price. Yeah. So, and then that is interesting. Anything thoughts in that realm?
Probably just circle back quickly to what Fordy touched on there about like his service guy. I think here, like if we're looking for different clients, one thing to note is that, you know, we're too expensive in one area, or, you know, we seem to not be able to compete. If maybe your team spread too far. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to have everyone be an all-rounder in a skill set sense. So what obviously, you know, you've got a large team, so there's obviously going to be a few more costs involved in it all, but what you've been able to manage to do is sort of circumnavigate it to a point with having an expert service Sparky. So his ability to execute the work is going to be better than if you brought in a couple of guys from your commercial team who are, and it's not right or wrong, it's just the reality of what happens is they're wired in the sense of, oh, this is how we've got to get the job done, because they've been doing it for the last 12 months on the TAFE job, exactly, sort of thing. So whereas, you know, Robbo, for example, who's the service guru, he knows that it's just like, oh, well, I'm in and out on this job because this is how I've done this.
Well, you need that. You need that person that, like, is going to be in and out, getting to 6 jobs a day. Yeah. And, like, at the moment, like, it went from, like, maybe scheduling 3 jobs. He's going, oh, yeah, I'm ready to go. Because that's the other thing you know is you put the wrong person on there. If they got 3 jobs scheduled in their name, that would be doing 3 jobs. Whereas we've got guys that are going, what's the next one? What's the next one? And then we start going, oh, let's put 6 jobs on there. and then there's 6 jobs getting done a day. Whereas if you've only like allowing, some people will make the 3 jobs last a day. So finding the right person. Yeah.
Cheers had this conversation because I'd never heard the terminology job and knock until maybe a month ago.
Yeah.
And I swear, like the trade gods keep putting it, everyone's talking about job and knock.
Job and knock.
I was always, and if you don't know what job and knock is, welcome to my world 2 months ago. But essentially, if you allow 8 hours for it, yeah. So if you finish the job early, you can go home, which presents a huge level of ramifications.
No business owner ever.
Yeah. But you got to think about it logistically. It's what precedent you set as a 1 or 2 person band, you got to carry into the 20s. So, I often think it's really interesting. Let's say we're all on a ducted aircon system, the A team's back in session, and you've worked 50 hours this week, you've worked 40, I've worked 30. It's real hard, and then we all work as hard as each other. I get to go home early. It's kind of it's got to be fair across everyone's sense, I think. But yeah, so we just had the conversation beforehand about so if you are doing job and knock, stop it. The people should be able to call you, and they should be chasing that next job until it's 3:30 or 4:30 or whatever time you sign off.
Still knock off.
How do you guys go on that? Because the common thread is that if I drag the job out for 5 hours on Simpro or ServiceMate or some other ungodly app you're using, then people will take 5 hours, or if I drag 8 at the stage.
For context, Crowley is only used to a Word document and an Excel spreadsheet.
and some cardboard.
Couple of sticky notes.
The tops of PowerPoint boxes.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the job notes and all of the
It worked. It worked though.
Stuffed on top of the smoko rubbish on the front dash.
Yeah.
So
you'd hate to be.
Ways that you can
go
about that. Yeah. So with obviously job management software, I'm a huge advocate for job management software. I don't know how people run a business without it, or at least running without something of a decent level. A lot of it comes down to the quoting side of things, that there's information left on there by the person who did up the quote with how they've gone about it. So it doesn't have to be like a long-winded essay or anything like that. It could just be like, hey, it's a trading apprentice team, and I've allowed X amount of time for it. And they may have buffer time in that job, in the overall estimate time, but so we call it a scheduling time. So the scheduling time is this.
So if you're unfamiliar with how like a price book or a pre-build works or a bundle on ServiceMate, you basically might have 90 minutes, 120 minutes. So if you drag that to schedule, you can choose the allocated time of the pre-build, but then there's an actual time of what you're expecting the job to be completed in. So you override the pre-build and put in the actual time.
Yeah, so we just leave it in our notes section.
Yeah.
So that the scheduling person has an idea of, not only just an idea of but how it's been thought out, and like I guess methodology is the easiest way to describe it. Like, what have you allowed for? How's it gone about? So really important because I think when you start back costing all your jobs, the biggest thing you can see how a job gets cooked, like in a small service side, or even like a small project. But more so on the small service side of things, if we'll just throw the apprentice on that job for a bit of, and it goes from being...
The calculator hates you already.
30-40% potential profit margin on it. So it's like, why am I rolling in the orange or red of like 10% sort of thing? It's like, well, basically he became a glorified tool bag, or she, and they just passed tools to you.
Yeah. Might as well be a potato.
So really important. 100%. Really important for context. That you have an understanding, and we picked that up early on by back costing jobs, and you're looking at it and you're like, this job should have been so much better, and then it's like, because we're being the generous business. We'll there's a time and a place for learning and educating, but there's ultimately you're in business to make money, and I've got no shame in saying that at all. And I think no one started the business to be a charity, and if you did, you're in the wrong line of work because there's no tax breaks.
Yeah, at least do something cool.
Do something. Helps, I guess, the community or the world as such. So. The methodology around it's really important to understand it. I think also too is we hear a lot around like scheduling issues that people have. By doing that, I feel like you can alleviate a lot of scheduling issues, because it could be like, oh, hey, we've quoted this job for a day for a tradie to go to, but then you throw the apprentice onto it, and then now you're scrambling to find that job that fits in at the end of the day, where it's like, well, there's a day, bang, problem solved, on to the next day. So I think understanding how that affects you, it's like, oh, well, that apprentice can just go with that other team over there to the project. Yeah, it's not a TA team, but now it's just a TAA team. Bit of a heads up to the other tradie to be like, hey, man, do you need any assistance with how we're going to go about organising your day? Like, it's a 5-minute phone call. So is going to be there. I would suggest you go around it like this. And they're like, oh, yeah, sweet, too easy. And you've allocated that person.
Yeah, you might have just hit the nail on the head with the incremental, exponential pricing structure. So if I'm by myself, I'm a weapon, and I'm quoting 2 days, I'm going to smash this out. And then the business grows, I'm like, okay, 2 days, trade the apprentice team, let's smash it out. So it goes up $1,000, goes from $3,000 to $4,000 or $4,000, whatever. And now I'm quoting 2 days or 3 days, so a day longer for average tradie A and average apprentice B to do it. So now my job's gone from $3,500, I didn't know my prices, to $5,500 with an apprentice. I'm getting grip on the prices, to $8,000 now that I'm sending those people out. I'm allowing for my time project managing. So you can really see the scheme of things. But yeah, Fordy, what about that job and knock? Like, how do you guys schedule out? Do you give
there's always, like, I guess one thing with having the service side where you do the maintenance is, like, there's always seems to be like a bit of a backlog. So there's a lot of like little half an hour, 1 hour jobs. Sometimes it was nice when it was quiet because I'd get people to come to my house and like do the shit that I didn't want to do.
yeah.
But that hasn't happened for ages now. And there's a few jobs that are piling up on the list from my wife. But it's like, I'm like, fuck, we just need to be quiet again so I can get this shit done at my joint. We're doing one of the first installs of this battery system at my place. On the test run for it. So if you see an explosion come out of Cumberland, New South Wales, you know that this battery is probably not one you want to install in your house. But it's actually been sitting in our shed since November last year, and it's been the fill-in job for the solar side. So I guess, and it got installed Friday when I was away. And it's not finished.
Yeah.
So, but it's actually been sitting there. So
it's like a home-based mistreated.
So that was like a little fill-in job. Like, if everyone's quiet from the solar side, then come and do that. But it's just sort of sat there and been neglected. But like, I think the job and knock thing just seems ludicrous to me. Like, I get it. Like, when you're trying to be a cool business owner and be like, oh yeah, like I look after the boys, let's fucking go surfing and stuff like that. Like, we've probably done that back in the day, but like, if you're looking at it like exactly what you said before, you start doing that now, like you get bigger and you start having the growth that your business wants and going, I got to go legit now. I don't knock off for surfs and do this and that. It's more about the money, because you start paying your tax bills and realising, oh fuck, like I've actually got to do this properly. The people that were working for you back then are going, oh, this dude used to be cool, but he doesn't do that anymore. And I actually talked about it the other day in the podcast I did with Heath, and saying all those people that started the company with us have kind of dispersed now. And like, it's sad, but also at the same time, like what we've created now, the people that are coming in because they want to be a part of that. And the guys that were there before were when we were, you know, knocking off, having early beers like on a Tuesday. And, you know, we used to have the keg sit next to our shed and we'd sit there vaping and drinking beers in the shed. Like, we are completely different to that now. And that was the time that we had with them.
Vaping or like...
No way. Like, it's fully changed, like fully so different now. Like, so it's kind of good that the people coming through now have like see...
That's
like
cool. They don't know any different.
No.
So let me ask you about, like, do you think that if you're older people, because they got acclimatized to a certain style of this is what we do here, do you think you could have retained any of them if they came into this new culture and they didn't know an old way?
Because we've done it kind of fast, but still progressively as well. Like, you know, it's going from getting a bigger job, so that's why we've got to do it now. Like, now everyone's in fluoro shirts, whereas back in the day we were all in t-shirts. So it's like making that little jump to that. And then like, you got to have that conversation saying like, mate, you can't wear a t-shirt on site. Everything's fluoro. Like we say, like, no matter what site you're on, this is what you got to hear by. Like, the same thing with the lockout tag out was like a massive push for us in the company. And
when did you push that?
we've been pushing it for a few years, but like solely like in the last 2 years, like where I provided all the lockout kits for everyone and everything like that. And like that is mandatory. And I fired someone over it the other, like last year. I got rid of him.
Is that a one and done?
That was one and done.
Yeah.
That was like it was a pretty serious incident, but they were gone, one and done, straight out the door. So and they knew it straight away as well.
What if you don't mind me asking, like, what was the reason? Was it
For
just
not doing it?
for not doing it? Yeah.
But not.
Yeah,
But
like,
why they
what
didn't
was it?
know.
Yeah,
They
did
took someone else's lock off and then turned the circuit on and energized it when they were
Oh,
working on it.
okay. And what was the reason? Was it Friday afternoon? Was it kind of
Packing up.
a job and knock? That's job and knock in a nutshell,
No,
though.
like it was. I think it was just like a miscommunication between two people, and they'd passed their key over earlier in the day when they had to do something else, and I think they had to take it off to take the scutcheon off the switchboard and then put it back on, but they never actually returned the key to that person. At the end of the day, packing up, yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
interesting.
that was a like straight out the door. Sorry, that's like it's
It actually might even be the ideal, although it's not relatable, but it's the ideal segue to job and knock, because my biggest thing with job and knock is people, as your team grows, you promote rushing and you promote, let's finish early so we can go somewhere else. So you've already got that thing in your head. So anything else that comes up, you're already like, I thought I was getting out 2 and I'm getting out 3.
Yeah.
And also my theory is as well, if people are going to participate in your success, they should also participate in the failures.
Yeah.
So if you're going to give people 5% on this, 10% that, or benefit, then what about a callback?
Yeah.
Do they get punished for the callback too? So it's actually, if you look at it, the more you look at it, the more it's completely unsustainable across the successful growth of a business. But coming back to our numbers chat, I guess it's interesting because we work pretty heavy from numbers off spreadsheets. That almost like independent commissions into your job management system. Now, I feel like your numbers tell you everything you need to know. So who's performing, who's not performing, what clients performing, what clients, how your scheduling is, if your admin needs to be handled by one person, if you lost it.
Manage the job well?
Yeah.
Been mismanaged or mishandled?
Yeah, so the management of the job. So I know you guys are 40 big numbers people too. You have regular meetings about what's working. Like, how do you guys navigate that in your business?
So we work all off like everyone, because now when we quote, there's 4 of us, excluding the solar and the maintenance side, like just for project work, there's 4 of us that will share the quoting side of things. We all work off the same model spreadsheet that we've made, and it's taken us like a few years to create the spreadsheet that we've now got. And like we tried a few different softwares and things like that. We obviously use Ground Plan to count, but like that's been the thing that's worked the best for us. We also have things like we have our monthly target, each project management team, and we all have our own monthly targets to hit for
winning work or for completing work?
For invoiceable amounts.
Yeah.
So like you've got to invoice out this amount this month. Like that's like an expectation set between us. And then like there's obviously times where I'm only project managing like 2 jobs where the other guys are on 6, or one of the guys is on a massive $1 million job, so he invoices out the whole month for everyone. So
he's job and knock, and you're like, damn it.
Job and knock. That's where like we talk about numbers in regards to those things. And then one of the project managers actually created our own profit and loss spreadsheet, because we do it all through Simpro as well. But then because we've got these the Excel spreadsheets we've used, he's created our other ones where from the monthly spreadsheet of what we're going to invoice out, he has in there the profit and loss of the job and the actual job costings, and then it spits out good, medium or bad profit on it. Yeah. So we've got it all divided up like that. So then he can see what he's invoicing out, and then even though if he hits his target, he might have 4 that are going to be no good. So therefore he's got to lift his target to hit the certain net profit margin as well.
Yeah, the more you get into everything, the more it's just all about gross profit, net profit, I think. And all the business owners that are doing good things are embracing that and talking about that, which is awesome. And how do you guys reflect upon, let's say, 14% net profit and the job was mishandled? Like, do you guys get in a group and talk about So
Yeah,
if you had a large like 500K, and this is big for anyone coming through, your price might not necessarily be wrong. Your price could have been right and you mishandled it or chopped and changed teams around, or Fordy started it and then I finished it and then Cam came for the middle part or whatever, for the cutout. And he, you know,
why is that?
yeah, which is really frustrating from the client's point of view to be having the same conversations across it. But it's actually, you can see it on net profit at the end of it. But how do you guys sort of discuss that?
Of like where something's gone wrong.
Yeah,
like
like,
how,
you know,
and then we know because we do. So we break everything down in. So on a project, we'll break everything down on Simpro to tasks as well. So like I know you can use the project quoting and then do as a project. We've sort of it got a bit hard for everyone to do that, so we break it down. So say now we're doing this pub, and we'll have a job card that's for the undergrounds, and the guys on the undergrounds do that. We tally that up. We know what our cost is on that. We've got our spreadsheet of how we quoted it. We do our running job card and be like, boom, yeah, that fucking we killed it on that. Oh, and then we've got the other thing where, for a prime example, we did these lights in a slab, and we quoted a certain amount per light, and it blew out within like
as soon as you said
couple,
light in a slab, I'm like,
of hours because we weren't managing it properly, and it didn't get told to us that the slab was meant to get ripped up. It was meant to be putting conduits in the slab. The slab didn't get ripped up, and our guys had gone and grabbed a core hole drill and core holed lights, and then they were hand digging underneath the slab. And then Jared, who is project manager, has gone out, and they've spent a whole day on there, and he's going, "What the fuck are you doing?" And they're like, "Oh, what do you mean? This is the builder told us we had to get these conduits in," and we're like, "No, that's got to come up." The builder didn't even realize the slab was coming up, so we did that. And then we had to rip the slab up. But like that's where variations come in. We go, well, that's a variation. So like luckily we could fight back on that. But like we had like an hour or something to put a conduit up thinking like, oh, we're going to kill it. We've got to bend one conduit up. It's an hour. Bang, bang, bang. And they spent a day on two holes and there's a row of 10 of them or something. Like they're the things where like if you're not physically on site, but that's where
someone's got to be
you have to have someone in. There's got to be something coming on a job that's moving fast, though. It can be hard, and they think they're doing the right thing because they're like, "Oh, the builder said we've got to get this done. We've got to go." So that's where like it's different with the different people we have. Like the guys that have done the big commercial projects know the right and wrong. Now we're starting to put some other people into those roles where they haven't done that before. They're starting to be like, "Oh, I just thought that's what you had to do."
Far out, yeah. Variations are huge in the project space. I mean, I was massive on by Monday. Every vari was sent out.
Yeah.
So we'd have a big walkthrough before rough in or before a certain stage. Rough in, cut out, fit offs. Obviously, if you don't have your answers by fit off, you really want to make sure that's outside of what you could have solved at that point. So that's huge. What do you guys handle with variations?
How do we handle variation?
Yeah, like daily, weekly.
So they get captured on the job. So whoever's the leading hand on the job, it's their responsibility to look after the paperwork on it all, and that gets sent upwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how does it get from office from site to office, approved back to site?
So it goes. So it's all digital. So it's a digital document that they take the photos on, fill it out, tell us what was used, what wasn't used, how much time, and that goes straight to our estimator.
So we do it a bit different because we've been pulled up on it before. So we've got a paper copy, which would be good to have digital, but we've got a paper copy that we don't do, and the guys don't do anything until, so it's prior to anything even getting done. It's a variation sign off, and the builder has to sign it before we even do anything. And we estimate like materials and stuff, and then they go, oh, we need a price for it. Then it'll come back to the office. But otherwise, that gets signed. It gets then attached to the variation job card. So then when it does get built out and they go, oh, what's that? We go, well, your builder signed it. So, and then they go, oh, fuck, well, there's nothing we can do about it.
And then what about, because I know for us, let's talk about, it's hard to have one process that fits all. If you had that ideal sort of, let's say it was a cost plus high-end residential job and the client's walking around, super cool client, work for them for a long time, they're throwing stuff out, you're obviously probably not going to get them to sign things. So we had clients that if they said something, we just did it, smile and nod, invoice always paid. The invoice could have been in Chinese. Like they wouldn't have cared. They just paid everything. Do you guys have, or are you just like, no, one way fits all?
Because we've had those jobs. We've had those jobs where it doesn't go. Depends what it is. If it's like we just finished that the big cost plus job where it was like we just had a full team there for a year pretty much, and that rolls that way. But everything's still noted as a variation, as a change. So that if it does get argued, they're not signing paperwork because they would have been a stack of paper this big. But it's noted in their job card, and that's the beauty of Simpro. They know everything in there, and then it'll be for the day. Changes made, variations made. So then when they do get an invoice and go, oh, that took a bit longer. Why is that? Or why is this whole job double what your estimation was at the start of the job, which did happen on that project? Like we would double the price of the estimation we gave. And it's like, well, this is why. And then they can't argue.
Yeah. That happened to me. I remember quoting something for, let's say it was $100,000 basic scope, mid-level house, turned into a bit of a high-level sort of home automation thing. Where we never handled the automation. We used Tommy from Rylak, who I think you guys have used before, a total legend. And then I remember it was up to about 200, so double what we originally said, pushing to the 230 mark. Yeah. And the builder was like, hey, I've got it on Zoom that you said like $100,000, you know? And I'm like, that's account for nothing. like we're talking about this now. Now you've added all this stuff. Because I was so well documented, I was like, here's what you've added. Here's the 40 things you've added. One of those things was 74. It was 74 like in slab conduits for blinds, curtains, and external blinds. So you can only imagine there's like $1,000 each per item at least, not even including the automation. So just that documentation helps. What brought you guys to that level of documentation? Was it trial and error? Was it always like that? Yeah.
Getting fucked over and not being able to charge is definitely errors for us.
Yeah, there's that part of it, but also too just like not knowing. Like where'd all the hours go this week? Like what if we like you turn up and you're like, what's going on?
What have you done?
What's been done? So I mean I was pretty fortunate in the sense that where I worked for a decade, we were pretty diligent on that there. So I sort of brought that experience with me. And I've always been like really big on the job card because the job card tells you everything. But obviously standards slip over time and you're sort of like, I told him once he'll be right with that, he'll do it forever now. And it's like, no, they don't. Which is fine. That's just humans, I guess, as a whole. But yeah, basically to just know what's going on. Because if you back cost a job or back cost the day or the week, and you look and you're like, why were we there for, like a week? And then you have the quick conversation like, oh, we have to do this, this, and this. You're like, well, it's not on the job card. Why not? So then you create, we would adjust and build out the job card so we would get more.
A lot of trust goes into the guys on site with that sort of stuff. And we've had so many, we bring it up in toolboxes a lot. Like when we start noticing it drops off a bit. And then one of our main things as well is doing job cards on site. Like you cannot leave the site. And that slips away all the time. Because I check it every night. I go, if someone's doing my jobs, I check it out. Oh, where's the job card? Like, oh no, I'm going to do it when I get home. Like, no, because I fucking know you're going to get home and you forgot to install. You forgot to write down the $500 light that you got from bloody Creative Lighting that no one else knows about, and it's not on there, and it didn't go in an automatic upload purchase order, so I can't see it. So then it's like it's those things, and it's like you need to be walking around on site, knowing everything that's there, and doing it on site. And there's all those things with trust coming onto that. You can lose so many, even couple of little, some consumables or these little things. You add that up over years when you got heaps of guys going.
So much money for such a simple solve. Yeah, we were big on the next day, but the first thing the admin does the next day is audit the day before. And let me just preface this by saying if you don't have an admin person, the general rule of thumb is you need a day in the office at the start. And then per tradie apprentice team, you need another day. That's a loose terminology. So I'd really be the after your first tradie, I would say the next hire or within that first or second tradie hire should be an admin because that'll change your life. And then coming into it, just check the time wise. Oh yeah, got a bit of time left. What would you say? Obviously back to the numbers discussion, you sit with 3 people that have sort of been collectively in business for. In the industry for 60 years, you got your head right around timings and, you could probably look at the plans of a $50,000 job, $100,000 job and it's about $100,000. So what advice would you give to people on that journey of pricing and numbers? Like, what are some huge mistakes you wish you knew sooner, and any, like, I guess, for lack of a better word, cheat codes?
I think like one thing is that I want to talk about a bit more is being like not afraid to reach out for help from people, whether it's people like you guys, whether it's a coaching company, whether it's an estimation company. I know people like Estimate, who Josie talked about, they actually do do quote reviews as well. So you can pay them to review a quote. You can sit down with them and go through things, and they might pick up on something you've missed.
Cool.
We used to send bigger ones out to an estimation company in Melbourne. I can't remember the name now.
When let us know. We'll chuck it in our socials.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and we've used them on a few big projects. So it's always good. And like I've gone back and done. They're ones where they were like, they might have been a $3-4 million job now, but back in the day, I was using them on ones that were like $100,000, and then it was good to like go back like, oh yeah, we price it ourselves as well, and yeah, we're around the same sort of price. Now it costs like $5,000 to go get them to do a big one. So it's kind of like we're not doing it all the time. If we've got time in house to do it, and then we know the plans. But I think
is there a threshold of, let's just say you're the estimator.
Yeah.
Like, actually, that's a bad example. Let's just say you're paying the estimator for the tradie apprentice team and yourself. Is there a threshold to how many jobs you would pay to estimate and lose, or is it all about the learning? Like, would you be like, nah, 3 and done?
Yeah, that's kind of what we had a quota per year. I think we allowed them to do 3 for us a year. Yeah. And then we actually didn't really win any then when we were using them. But you get the most detailed breakdowns of down to like talking about like how many screws and stuff like that. Like they send it all through. They work with Simpro as well. So they've got everything. And all you have to do is they estimate the hours. You put your hourly rate in that you want to charge. And your markup, if you want to change your markup on materials and things like that, they go to our wholesalers for the pricing. They go to our switchboard manufacturers for the pricing. So really, they're doing the hard work of doing the takeoff and what they think you need, or they work out what you need. So it's kind of just down to you. So if you are losing a project due to that, like someone, you might be, like we're saying, like quoting as someone that hasn't gone that far into depth, and you actually know, and it's not a bad thing because like, well, we know that's what it's going to cost. So if someone else is going to do it and they're way under, then fuck, good on them. Good. But like when I was saying about reaching out for help, it might be to another Sparky as well. Like I think a big thing in our industry is everyone's afraid to talk to each other. I don't know what it's like up there, but I know like a lot of people around here, it's kind of like we've got a couple guys we speak to. We try and make the effort to talk to people, but like I know there's only so much you're allowed to legally talk about pricing wise before it gets into, legal, collusion. That's it. I was saying it the other day. I think I said coercion. I don't know. Is that what it is? No. But having those relationships with people, because someone, might have done one of those jobs that you don't know about, or help each other where you can be. And it also helps everyone raise the standard of what they should be charging. And then if you start having the conversations with people, like, oh, we lost this job we lost this job to this guy, we lost this job to this guy. It starts, everyone becomes a bit wary of who they talk to and enemies. Whereas, like, if we all help each other, it's only going to make the industry better, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember one day because I'm outside the industry in a way, like I'm not quoting electrical jobs anymore. So I remember hearing one day of a builder that I know got 5 quotes back, and there were 110, 115, 112, 118, and then a 70 grand one.
Yeah.
And he was like, double checked with the 70 grand. Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? And it's like 40 to 50 grand, I fully, as much as you want to high horse judge it, it's understandable. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. And anyway, I was getting calls off that Sparky at that point. I think I cooked it, and so I'm having 2 independent discussions, one from the side of I just saved 50 grand, and one from the side of like, this is very stressful. And it was so interesting to sit in the middle and be like,
So you're consulting both of them for fees?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, just charging everyone whatever I can. No, but I was talking to the guy, who quoted it, and he was like, "Oh, I miss this, I miss that, I miss the deck work, all this kind of stuff."
That whole level.
But if those
3 stories.
5 people were talking, coercing, you might say, those 5 people were like just chatting, being like, "What did you price for that?" At least you would know.
Yeah.
And it's huge because I think comparing prices is sketchy because the break-even rate, I think I said this on our Insta story last week, but cost of ops, the overhead per billable resource will range from 20 to, I've seen it at 20, I've seen it at 80. 80 is wrong and 20 is wrong.
Yeah.
So, but let's say there's a healthy range between sort of 25 and 55, depending on your company size, service and maintenance, factories, vans, all that kind of stuff. There's a really healthy range, but even that's a $30 range. And if you're in certain parts of East Coast Oz, you're paying $40 for a tradie. If you're in other parts, you're paying 55. So you compare the $15 an hour difference in hourly rate, the $1 say in super, and the $30 across the cost of ops different. That's like $45 to $50 difference per hour at cost price.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely, not saying it's not comparable because it is to an extent, but knowing those break-even prices will give you so much confidence and in stepping forward and ahead. But yeah, I'm not sure if I interrupted you where you were at with everything.
The only other, I'll jump back in on that quickly. In regards to like, I don't know how far I can go into it. There's a contractor in the area that gets a lot of the work, commercial wise. We lose nearly every job to the same person, and I know I've spoken to a couple of the other guys that have been in the game for 30 years in the area, and they're fucking losing it because like their jobs that they have always sort of won, and this one guy seems to be winning all of them. Like I'm talking, like he's going on, he'd be doing upwards. It must be like 20 mil at the moment in project work. Maybe 3 full-time staff, all subcontractors, the whole thing. So like that's another thing, like he might have 3 cars on the road, but he's
not paying for any of them.
So that's what we realised we were pricing up against this and going, fuck, like how, like, because I know I asked the builder on one of our prices for like a price check of like where were we at, and they were way under. And I actually asked them a few questions of inclusions. I know they didn't include any heated flooring when every apartment had heated flooring, and they left it out. So I don't know where that goes from then. I go, okay, so what do you do about that? And like they sign a contract, that's part of the contract. But then I was just trying to figure out, like, fuck, how can we get there? But like, if you've got subcontractors with no overheads you're putting on top of them, then that's where they're beating us on these jobs, and we're trying to, like, I don't know, you're competing against that. And I know we like to keep people on full time, but now we're sort of making that change into being like, well, maybe that's the way we've got to go. Like we keep our core team and then we start using more subcontractors. What we're doing now, we've been able to be a lot more competitive on some projects as well.
Yeah, I mean, a general subcontractor is usually of a relatively high skill set because they've been confident enough to go out on their own with no business training, which is pretty much everyone. That's what I did as well. But, if you looked at your employee cost, including your overheads, it's usually between 85 and 105. Well, let's call it 80 and 100, this wage, super, operating expenses. That's normal realm, you would say. But subbies usually charging 60, 65, 70 bucks an hour. So you can get them 20 to 30% cheaper. And if you're a subby charging that, I think you might need some education. Generally speaking, it costs you about 17 to 25 bucks an hour to run the business. So if you could go walk into wages for 45, that's 50 including super, plus your 25, that's 75 should be. You can't move under that. That's a standard wage. And then there's no overtime on that too. And you're taking a lot of the risk of work, and someone can cut you early or pick you up for 2 weeks and then drop you off, that kind of stuff. So yeah, huge on that. But like using subbies is
we use
great.
Subbies are costing us less than our apprentices and way more skilled labour.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. And then we were doing the job up the coast. So instead of paying people to travel as well, we utilised guys from up there. So it like pretty much helped us claw like a heap more profit on that project.
And you just had your like head of the pyramid scheme.
Literally two of our guys there, and then 6+ subbies there. And we kept the same guys through pretty much most of the project. One of the guys stayed on from the very start through to the very end, and then a couple of guys got other projects to go off to, and things like that. But we kept one of the same subcontractors the whole time, who's really good, and we want to try and get him on another one, but he's up Goldie Way, so it's kind of hard. So maybe I'll give you his details if you need.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, my sign off would be, I've sat with people on both sides of the spectrum. So I remember sitting at the last company that I worked at, who shan't be named. I remember sitting. Basically, someone quoted 60 grand for this job, like a mid tier, like residential sort of thing, and put it in this chat of 200 people that I lost a job to someone who quoted 40, and all hell broke loose. You're better than that. Pick your ideal client. This scroll down. It got later referred to me. Someone mentioned it as toxic masculinity. Because I don't mean to be sexist at that point, but it was mainly guys in there.
Yeah.
And like I remember, I was like, oh, let's sit down and work out how you got to that point. So I sat down with him and on like a labor and materials checker, and sure enough, it comes in really close to 40. But he just had a price book built for Betty's house, tried to apply the square peg to the round hole that is the construction industry, and obviously allowing or not allowing or taking into consideration any efficiencies. A lot of times people will get 15 to 20 meters for a lighting point, power point, and you apply it to a project where you're using 7 to 12 meters. So the incremental effect of materials actual versus estimate alone can blow it out of the water, north or south. So let's face that. So like you're either going if you don't know your prices, I would say you're either going way high or way low. Way low insecurity, and way high probably like a lack of education. And there is a sweet spot. There's a market value, I feel. So my realm is just like know your numbers, front cost, back cost, and really just dive into it. And I think you might have nailed it, Fordy. Like there's no shame. If you don't know, you can always ask. You can pick up the phone and call it on the Sparky. You can reach out to us. Just if you don't know something, you don't know something.
It's going to be less embarrassing for you to reach out and speak to someone than get halfway through a job and be losing hundreds of thousands of dollars and having that conversation with your family, your fucking accountant, and all those things. Like, if you could have, like the guy that came and said to you that he knows he cooked it, did he still do the job? Because you have a chance, you have that conversation before and pull out, and even though you might lose a job, it might not be worth getting yourself into a shit fight where you're going to be losing thousands and thousands of dollars.
Well, ironically, and this is huge to touch on, he finished the job and finished it well.
Yeah.
And the two ones that I misquoted, we finished the job and finished it well. Like from a face value, you wouldn't have thought, there's no difference on made money, lost money. And I think that's where people are sort of going wrong. But want to sort of land a plane. What do you guys think?
So first and foremost is 100% agree with you, Fordy, on like the knowledge part of it, which is one thing I guess that's driven me for a long time. Is I just couldn't believe how, I don't know if there's arrogance in it, but just like the closed-mindedness of the electrical industry, it actually pisses me off a little bit of how like, oh, I'm not going to tell you that. And it's like, well, doesn't a rising tide lift all ships? And because then the same person then whinges to you about how, there's no apprentices and all the tradies are shit and all that. It's like, but you're unwilling to share anything with anyone. So how is anyone going to learn? And I always go back to, well, how did you get in the game? And it's like, oh, well, I got an apprenticeship. But I'm like, well, someone put the time and effort into you. Like, shouldn't you at least pay it back? To an extent. And I feel like we've got so much to learn. And, you keep hearing about like there's not enough Sparkies. And the reality is there's not enough trades, full stop, let alone just electricians at this, time in our lives across Australia. So why don't we all work together and get better to raise the standard and raise the knowledge so that, we're not having these discussions of like potential undercutting or mischarging, or so that everyone has the knowledge and understanding of like, hey, well, this is where it should be at. And I think the biggest thing, and I say this often to a number of our clients, is like, number one thing I wish I knew from the get-go was like what back costing a job was, because it just tells you everything that you need to know. From understanding like, well, I allowed for 8, but I was there for 15. Why? And it's like, well, I misquoted it, right? There's always going to be the job that you talked about, like, oh, those conjugates were a nightmare. That's just the reality of it. But you learn from those. But the back costing of the job just teaches you everything and then helps you understand how to actually then quote the jobs. And then also to breaking it down real simplistic, like into a task sense. Well, like how long does that part of the job take? How much labor do I need? How much materials do I need? And then checking it to be like, hey, how long did that take? And I remember when I sort of got the analogy around that, I would start to measure each task to be like, how long did it take? What was involved in it? And I think that just helps you so much as a business owner to learn how to estimate it correctly. So that's sort of, I guess, my thought around it all. If you start to understand the costing of it all and where that comes from, it feeds both ways to help you with estimating and then helps you with understanding what went well and what didn't go well on that particular job.
Yeah, I reckon 100%. Just making sure that if you got to know where you're at to like one go forward, but then like you're saying, go back on things as well and go, well, why did that? Why did we go wrong there? And making sure you do check over that, and then that's going to obviously become a lesson. We've gone into jobs before, kind of knowing we've undercooked it, and knowing that, well, how can we make that? How can we make it better? Well, it came down to us price doing the same thing that a builder would do, and we price check the wholesalers, and then we realised by doing that, we can get this much. We save 10 grand on lighting by using this person here, and then we start doing that when we quote now. And then we start going, hang on, like, the cable meter pricing, we start playing people with it's not playing people, but it's instead of just going the same person every time, going and shopping around a little bit. And then you hold the power as well. Like, it's not as much a builder would do it to us. We can do it to suppliers and wholesalers to get better pricing as well. Because at the end of the day, you don't know if that's legit pricing. We can all jump on TradeZone now and see a price for PowerPoint, and then I go to the wholesale and it's more than TradeZone's charging. I'm going, hang on, what's going on here?
And what would you say to someone who is like uncomfortable in that space, like in that asking space? So let's say I was, I feel bad, like this wholesaler's looked after me. They come out on Sundays.
I think it's just having a conversation, because at the end of the day, they're trying to run a business as well, and they want your business, right? And like we get it all the time, like every wholesaler in the area is trying to get our business, because the amount of money we do each month or year, our turnover with a wholesaler is huge.
Yeah.
One of the biggest in that area, then obviously everyone wants your work. So what are they going to provide to do it? And it's, getting a free Weber or something doesn't always cut it. It's now where we're at. It comes down to pricing, and we've actually started sharing it along. So we've got good relationships maybe between 3 wholesalers.
Yeah.
And we can share it between and be like, yeah, you didn't get it on this one, but we'll get you on the next one as long as this is where you need to be at. Because the way the world is now, it is coming a lot down to pricing, and then sometimes we can readjust the price and save 10 grand, but we've still got a markup on it. But it's because we got a cheaper price from somewhere else. Same thing with a switchboard or whatever. We've noticed on a few switchboards we've been getting another price that's 20 grand cheaper. And we're going, hang on, we've got all these other jobs we've lost, and we've been putting the one switchboard supplier in there, and now we've got these other guys coming into the party, and it's the same thing, and it's 20 grand cheaper. I'm doing the same thing that we're talking about. We've gone, well, if it's apples for apples, why wouldn't I go for the one that's 20 grand cheaper?
Yeah, fire. It's so interesting, isn't it?
It's hard, but we also have a really good relationship with the other switchboard manufacturer, and we still use them a lot because we know the way they work. We know they're really good, and I haven't ever used the other people before. And sometimes the pricing doesn't always get over the line. I know it's going to be easier with these other guys, and it's just a conversation with them to be like, hey, look, we got this price. What can you do? And they'll go, we can. Most of the time, people will come to the party a bit and be like, look, we can do this and do this. We want to keep working with you. So it's not screwing people down. It's more maybe sometimes bringing people back to a competitive level, because if someone's got free reign in the industry they're in and they can start charging whatever they want. I know you see it a lot around here with tilers and things like that. There's a real shortage of tilers, and everyone complains that, a tiler charges heaps of money. Well, what if someone else starts doing it and then it claws it back a bit, but they're charging what's actually what the market price is, what you're talking about. So I think a bit of shopping around is always good. Don't just have all your eggs in one basket in that side of things, and start delving out. I reckon that'll change a lot of people's. If a lot of people are in one wholesaler's pocket, start looking around. I guarantee you will start getting some better pricing coming your way.
Yeah, and I'll land a plane with this. I think if you can strip yourself out of the business, you're not the boss. There's no emotional connection to it. You're the operations manager. Now, all of a sudden, my job is to make the business profitable, effective, and efficient. So, if you take out ego, insecurity, and my job's just like that, and I've got to report to a third party on how that job go, how the pricing go. Like, imagine having to report to a third party and then being like, hey, you could have made 2 phone calls to those 2 switchboard manufacturers and saved $20,000. Why didn't you do that?
Yeah.
So I think like putting full weight on yourself as your job is to make it profitable, effective, efficient. And that takes out emotion completely, which is fantastic. So you can make some good decisions. So in landing the plane, if you can ever actually land any plane of chatting about this, because I feel like I could talk about it all day, I think get to know your numbers a bit more. Progression beats perfection. So don't stress about being perfect. Just stress about progressing every single day, and ask what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, and try and pull yourself out of the pyramid scheme and get a bit better. So it's my sign off. Any final words of wisdom from you guys?
I
Or
think you've summarised it pretty good. Yeah, we could
Done well, mate.
talk about
perfect.
Yeah, we can keep going again.
Yeah. All right, thanks, guys. Thanks for hanging out. See you soon.
Cool. See ya.
Bye.